Eren Yeager is arguably one of the most polarizing fictional characters ever. He's so polarizing that many people genuinely do not fully understand his character and the reasons behind the choices he made in the story, or what he truly stands for. Understanding a character like Eren can be challenging for one specific reason: he's human. Eren embodies everything about an actual person: the good, the bad, and the ugly. As a complex individual, Eren does an excellent job of reacting to how dynamic and spontaneous life can be. That's why I'll do my best to analyze Eren Yeager, a great character, but a very flawed human being. Before we get into the video, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. I'd like to know y'all's thoughts on these videos too. So yeah, comment down, let me know what you think about Eren, and we're gonna talk about it in the comment section. So yeah, let's get to the video. Naivety, cynicism, insecurity. One of you watching this video probably has at least one of these character traits or others, and it's perfectly fine. We are all very flawed, and it's only human to have some sort of flaw or many of them. It makes us who we are. Identifying your traits allows you to understand yourself better as a person. Eren is no different. He has a lot of defining traits, and before we even understand why he made the choices that he did in the series, we have to analyze the traits that define him for who he is. Impulsiveness might be Eren's biggest character defining trait. I mean, he's literally known as the suicidal dumbass. He always jumps headfirst into every situation and is heavily influenced by emotions in most scenarios. I think the best example of this is how Eren transformed into a Titan in the early part of the story. We see that most Titan shifters cut themselves with a knife or some sort of other bodily harm. And yet this Eren. You know, yeah, it takes an insane amount of impulsiveness to bite and rip through your flesh to turn into a Titan. The next trait that Eren is really known for is his arrogance. He's not the type of person that overestimates his abilities. I feel like that's a different type of arrogance. Multiple times in the story, we've seen how tenacious he is and how he will never back down in any situation. This is because he has a huge sense of self-importance, which at times even pushes to narcissism, but stays in the realm of arrogance for the most part. I mean, after his mom died, he swore that he was going to kill all the Titans, and that was as a 12-year-old. For you to firmly believe you can achieve that, you need to believe you're very important or special person in the grand scheme of things. That's major main character energy right there. Now, I know most people will call these traits flaws in his personality, but that's not really the point, because even negative traits can help us achieve things. Not every positive trait might be useful in a given scenario, and let's say you might actually have to be selfish to get a desired outcome that's best for you. So looking at these traits in a vacuum and solely labeling them as negative isn't helpful. There always has to be context in these scenarios. But there is one thing that makes Eren borderline seem like a monster at times, and even brings out the worst in him. It's his lack of empathy. As an 8-year-old kid, this is someone who murdered 2 people and did not show the slightest bit of compassion or remorse for his actions. That is not normal at all, like at all. Just look at someone like Armin. When he killed someone for the first time, he had a breakdown and was questioning who he really was. He was having a hard time coming to grips with it. Eren's lack of empathy, even borderline, just makes him seem like a psychopath at times, and he probably would be diagnosed as one if he took a test. Granted, this is only for his enemies and not for everybody in general, so he's not like a serial killer. Another thing about Eren is that Eren cares, and he cares a lot. Like a lot. This is someone who always expresses his feelings and emotions in a very candid and genuine way, dare I say, even in a compassionate way, but to an extent though. When it comes to people he has a deep relationship with, he tends to grow the distance for these people. At the heart of it, Eren is someone who always puts others before himself. That has always been consistent in the series, whether it's refusing to tell Hanji, Levi, and the other scouts about how he could possibly control the Titans so it won't involve Historia, which will allow her to live a normal life, or saving Armin from being eaten by a Titan by sacrificing himself in the beginning of the story. It's very obvious that this is someone who always puts others before himself. Eren is also someone who's surprisingly willing to learn and grow from mistakes. Yes, he's a very impulsive person and he acts on the first wind, but time and time again we've seen that he's very open-minded and willing to trust people, try things a different way and get results. I believe it just kind of learns into his personality, how he's just so tenacious to always achieve his goals, and because he's so hell-bent on achieving them, he's always willing to be open-minded to try new things to achieve them. Eren has more traits that we could delve into, but for the sake of this video, we're just going to focus on these ones. Aside from the traits that define him personally, there's more we could look into to better understand who he is. We all have had major events in our life that have shaped us into who we are right now. As a matter of fact, without life-altering events, it's impossible to grow as a person. Eren is no different. Yes, we sort of get a picture of who he is by identifying his personality traits, but that's just really only half of the picture. To fully understand him, we have to analyze the major events that happened to him in the story and how these significant events further shaped him into the person he became now. For the major events, I believe there are 4 major events that played a key role to developing Eren into who he is. The first one is his mom getting eaten by a titan. The second one is Squad Levi getting killed by Annie. The third one is encountering the titan that ate his mom, so basically his stepmom. And the fourth one is remembering the memories of his father. Eren seeing his mom get eaten by a titan does not come as a surprise as a defining moment for him, considering how traumatic of an event that was for him. However, it's much different from the other events and the way he was impacted. I'll touch on how different it is from those other events when I talk about them. But this event really was the catalyst that made him hate Titans. Eren never really had a dream, but he did want to explore outside the walls. He always felt it was too cramped inside the walls and he wanted to explore outside of the walls with Armin. After a while, Maria broke down. His priorities shifted to killing every titan. For the next 3 years, the sole goal of killing all the titans would literally consume him and really feed into his growing arrogance. Granted, his impulsiveness did become a bit controlled after he became a scout and had to go through the training, but he still kind of had it. Now, the death of Squad Levi is probably the first event that pushed Eric to the brink and really made him question himself and his beliefs. At this point, he had gained his powers and kind of developed a superhero complex, believing that he could just save the day because of his titan abilities and everything would be fine. Sure, there would be people that died for the most part, but he mostly believed it was for like a greater cause, so he never really dwelled on it for too long. The whole Squad Levi getting killed just made him double down on this, because he blamed himself for allowing them to fight the female titan in the first place, and that led to all of them getting killed. His whole superhero complex that made him believe that he's going to save the day, probably it got to his peak when he fought Annie. The twist though is that he ended up not mattering. He lost to Annie and he had to be saved by Mikasa and Levi. This really weighed upon him, because even though he supposedly had the power now, things still ended up in a scenario of him having to be saved and not making much of a difference. So regardless of whatever choice he made, which was, allowing Squad Levi to fight Annie or joining them to fight Annie in the first place, it probably would have ended the same way, all of them getting killed. It really affected him. It's a similar case when he finally comes face to face with the titan that killed his mom. At this point for him, it's like he's finally confronting everything he's been working towards. Yes, Eren does want to help humanity, but he's acknowledged that it was actually never his main goal and he always just wanted to kill the titans. Coming face to face with the trigger of this goal and him not being able to do anything about it, it absolutely broke him, because this is something he's been obsessing over since basically the beginning of the series, since we first saw him. Again, this is someone who has a lot of arrogance because of his titan abilities. To make it even worse, Hannes is killed by the same titan and all he could do is watch. There's only one way he felt at that moment: useless. That's literally the only thing he could feel at that point in time. And yeah, he's right to feel useless. Nothing had changed really. He still needed people to help him, to save him most of the time, and he had to watch as others take the necessary steps to protect either him or humanity from the titans. Granted, he does end up fighting to the end, as he always does, and he uses the coordinate to kill the titan that ate his mom, but something gets triggered in Eren at that point that will lead to a change to how he views things, especially when it comes to his comrade and his loved ones going forward. The defining moment that really shaped up Eren's character happens when he sees the memories from his father after Historia and Rodriguez touch him. And we see a very different side of him, mostly because his perception of himself completely shudders at that point. He always believed he was special, and that is why it was easy for him to accept people dying on his behalf. He accepted it only being natural, as he was the one that got the Titan powers. He's the one that's gonna help humanity defeat the Titans. Seeing all the memories of his father just made him realize it's actually been the opposite. In his mind, all the pain and suffering that's happened up to that point should not have even happened in the first place. He's the cause of all of it, and it makes him break down. We know Eren had been dealing with feelings of him being useless, even though he has the most powerful ability in the world. But a lot of the time, he ends up being saved or not being able to do anything to change the outcome of the scenario with his abilities. He's always forced to rely on his comrades, making the defining move to salvage a situation. Eren had been vulnerable before and expressed his emotions. This is the most significant one in the story though, so much so that it even catches other characters like Historia and Sasha off guard. One thing that these events all have in common is that his loved ones and comrades are always there for him when he needs to move forward and make a choice that will determine how things would play out, or offer him a perspective of how things have played out and how things have to be different going forward. At the end of the day, you always have to move forward and fight. The whole world of Attack on Titan is very unforgiving and never slows down for anyone, even for someone who has the power to change the world. This event really burnt into Eren's head that you have to make the hardest choices. Someone who can sacrifice anything will never change anything. After all of this, it's only fair to ask, who's Eren Yeager? Well, Eren Yeager is someone that has had a close view of the world, and he had to rapidly come to terms with this, with how little he really knew. He's also very impulsive, arrogant, tenacious, and caring, somewhat selfless, and he's also unapathetic. So what happens when, not only give a person like this the greatest power in the world, but also all the knowledge that the world has to offer? Attack on Titan is a story that forces viewers to contemplate the morality behind most major events. Who is right? Who is wrong? What do you stand for? None of that truly matters. It just never really matters. What really matters though is whether one possesses the strength to pursue their desires. Only those who are strong enough can genuinely change the world and make a significant impact. But that's not all. Strength is just merely not enough. People like Frida Reese, Kenny Ackerman, and Tom Server, they were strong, yet they never succeeded in changing the world or realizing their goals or ideals. Merely possessing strength does not guarantee victory. To genuinely change the world and shape it into how you see it as, winning is important. And the only way to win in Attack on Titan is to fight. Now, you might be wondering, what's the point of all of this? Like, what am I trying to get at? Let me explain. In the world of Attack on Titan, it's emphasized that there's absolutely no right or wrong. What is certain though is the presence of winners and losers. The scouts who won and the military police who lost. The struggle to secure Historia and Eren. Yeah, there was never really any morally right or wrong. At the end of it, we only know who won and who lost. Same thing with, Marley and Eldir. Marley won the Great Titan War, and that's just how the world was shaped in. All we just really know is those who won and those who lost. Only the victors can decide how things will move forward and how the world will be shaped. That's why all that truly ever mattered to Eren was winning. Eren changed as a person after holding Historia's hand. I think we all know that. It made him realize that he had a new goal, and the only way to achieve that goal was to fight and win. There's a bit of issue that we run into when trying to analyze Eren's character, because we know that Eren had access to all the memories, future, past, and present. So this made me curious. How did this affect Eren's perception, and did that ultimately remove his free will, like the previous inheritors of the Founding Titan, where his decisions solely made because he felt like a cog in the machine and everything was inevitable? Or did he make these decisions based off of free will? I personally feel that Eren made his decisions based off of free will, and there are reasons why he was acting off of free wills that shouldn't in the story. For all my viewers in college, we know the feeling. You get back to college after Thanksgiving, there's a million assignments due, and you also have finals to study for and get good grades. It feels like the weight of the world is on you. The constant sense of feeling overwhelmed and anxious certainly doesn't even make things feel easier. Now imagine you knew you were going to fail your finals from the very beginning of the semester. Would you still prepare accordingly and try to see if things could possibly change? Or would you just stop caring and just accept the inevitable? Eren is someone that had been struggling with who he was, and if he really made much of a difference in the grand scheme of things, losing people had become much harder for him to swallow, especially the people he really cared about. Him initially seeing the memories of his dad slaughtering the royal family showed this. And yes, I know, when him and Zeke visited the memories again, we learned how he truly felt about the situation. But those feelings were directed more so to his dad. I do not think Eren's perception of bloodshed being futile and a never-ending cycle changed. He simply viewed the royal family as an enemy after realizing the truth. And we know how Eren lacks empathy when it comes to his enemies. It's one of his main character defining traits. So him not being bothered about the death of the royal family much later in the story is no surprise. When it comes to regular people though, he really values their lives and struggles with unnecessary loss of life. This was shown when he saw the memories of him interacting with the refugee that stole from Sasha in Odina. He really struggled and broke down because he knew the boy would eventually die in the rumbling. And this is one of the reasons why I believe he was acting off of free will the entire time. Eren is someone that is very impulsive. We know this. He dives headfirst into every situation without really thinking about it. That's how he eventually came to the decision that he wasn't going to burden his loved ones anymore and keep them in the all too familiar situation of them having to save him and rescue him to save the day. Something that had happened a lot of times earlier in the story. That is why Eren decided to fight. He became fixated on getting the outcome he so desperately wanted, which is very reminiscent to him in the story when he wanted to kill all the Titans. You know, he's very fixated on his goal. That's what he literally does in every situation. It's consistent with how his character has been from the very beginning. He always fights and tirelessly tries to move forward in every situation. Him deciding to eliminate the world with the rumbling is the decision he most likely would have taken. I think Eren eventually reached a point where he sort of lost his will to fight though. Kind of the whole situation with Broadrees when he lost his will to fight after he saw the memories. It's just the same thing all over again. Eren is not special. He's not Eren, a genius that can bear the weight of his sins and take the necessary gamble to salvage the situation and get the best possible outcome. He's not Levi, a natural prodigy who has overwhelming strength and can single-handedly change the outcome of war. He is tenacious though, even if it's to a fault at times. And I believe it all became too much for him to handle. Shouldering the burden of his fights, he decided to embark on. Another thing that I think affected him too is simultaneously experiencing all the memories as one. That comes from having the founding titan. We know it causes users to think incoherently to a degree and makes their head become a total mess. This is shown when he tells Armin that he just wanted to level everything and just do it for the sake of it. That's most probably him just being disingenuous with himself. Because the very next thing he said, he suggested that he had regrets about Sasha and Hanji dying. If he was doing everything for the sake of it, he wouldn't even have any feelings of regrets to begin with. He also goes into blaming himself and eventually says the same thing he told Historia. He's just someone that got these powers and he's never been special. That's why the worst possible scenario happened. In the end, Eren Yeager never really changed. He did a great job of trying to mask his character to his loved ones for the sake of protecting them, and it worked. He won. He got what he wanted in the end. But you have to be able to bear all the sins of all the lives you end. It's something everyone has to do. We saw Eren's reaction and thoughts about this at the end of the series. It just had a lot of us confused because he had done a great job of masking his character up until that point, and the sudden reversal to who he really was in the first place, it wasn't expected because of this character change. But he's always been consistent to who he was from the beginning of the story. Seeing the very real emotions poured out from him at this point solidified my thoughts on him. Eren Yeager is a great character but a very flawed human being, and that's why, in defense to him, he's not as bad as he seems.